Kids Ablaze, and we call it Kids Ablaze because this is the time when we meet with our children and adults, and we have our family forum. And so tonight we're continuing. The first week we were talking about um, the human trafficking and trafficking of children. Last week we had Pastor Lyle who spoke about um, the transgender issue. And tonight we are so delighted to have Dr. Richard Adley here, who is going to speak to us on mental illness and the family. So I thank you all for being here in the sanctuary and those who are watching via social media. We're just going to open in prayer, and I'm going to ask Deacon Dawn to come and open in prayer first, please, Deacon, and then we'll get started. Thank you. Amen. Now we know that there are a lot of things that plague our children today, and they are trying to navigate through all the things that are happening. And that's why we plan these sessions so that you as parents could find out what's happening in their lives. I was speaking to a young lady just the other day, and after she was finished, I was like, but you guys have issues as well. And so they do. And so this is our way of allowing you parents to find out what's going on in the lives of our children. And we've brought the experts here to help us to go through that. And so tonight, I'm going to ask Deacon Paul to come and introduce our speaker for tonight. Thank you, Deacon.
Cat Island. He is the oldest of Dr. Adley pursued postgraduate research at the Hubert H. Humphrey Fellow at the at the Johns Hopkins School of Public Health and completed doctoral studies in public health at the University of South Carolina. He later earned a law degree from the University of Wolverhampton and United Kingdom. Dr. Adley's current professional research focuses on exploring factors related to fidelity of implementation of an evidence-based risk behavior intervention focused on youth. Many of you present would have some exposure to his research, which has become a part of the family life curriculum. This program has been ongoing in our primary and junior high schools for the past 20 years. Dr. Adley and his wife, Opal, who's in attendance tonight, are the parents of 3 young adults. He is an avid Miami Dolphins, Miami Heat, and St. Louis Cardinals baseball fan. He loves traveling and has devoted the last 18 years of his life to building an ancestral family tree for his kids. I've known Richard for basically all my life as well. I always remember a quote Mike Tyson says, and it sort of describes Richard. He said, he knows a lot of great men, but it's bad to know a lot of good men. And Richard is a very good man, a man of great character. So I introduce Dr. Richard Adley to you.
Thank you so much, Paul. I need you to always be there for me to introduce me. You're doing so well. It's a pleasure to be here tonight, and the group is small, but we're gonna be quite interactive. And I'm hoping that what I have to share with you tonight is something that you could take away with you and apply in your lives and the lives of children and stuff like that and the community. And so I have a bunch of slides that I want to go through, and then we'll go from there. Okay. So first slide. Okay, so this is very simple. It says the family unit is the cornerstone block in which father, mother, and children can grow to be balanced and mature individuals. Okay, so the family is extremely important. Now, I started out 41 years ago in 1982, September 1st. I walked into Sandilands, a young man, licensed, well, we weren't licensed then, but clinical psychologist. And 2 years after that, can anyone remember what happened in our country? Huh? Yeah, it's around 84. Drugs, 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 cocaine epidemic. You know, a lot of us dwell on, think in terms of COVID, but that was a scary time. And so I was a part, along with Dr. Nelson Clark and a couple others, Dr. David Allen. But we put together, Dr. Clark, myself, and a couple other colleagues at Sandilands put together the first inpatient treatment program. Okay? So the Lignum Vitae unit that's at Sandilands started in 1984. And it was started by, I was a member of the first core team. Now, one of the things that I found interesting that we learned was that a substance abuse problem is never just a substance abuse problem. It's always an indication of deeper family issues. Okay? So people get into drugs because of what's happening in their homes. Huh? Yeah. Mhm. Mhm. And then we'll talk about it. Okay? We'll talk about it tonight. And then you could ask me that question at the end. Okay? Okay. So let's go. Next slide. I can move fast tonight, so. Okay. Okay. So see, families are the cornerstones of our lives because of three key things. First of all, families shape our experiences. Everything that you are now has to do with your family. The choices that you make have to do with the environment that you grew up in. So let me give you an example. One of our biggest challenges is morals and values. Okay? But do you realize that by the time a child goes to preschool, that their value system has already been shaped? So preschool teachers, Sunday school teachers can help to shape it. But where do you think their value systems begin with? In the home. And who's responsible for them during those first 3 years? And of the parents, in most cases, who? Okay? So mothers have a pivotal role to play. And that is why in some countries, mothers are given extended maternity leave. In many European countries, some women don't go to work until their children are 2, 3. Okay? Some North American women go to college, come out of college, and don't work until their children are well and ready, because it's important that they pump some things into their children's lives. The second thing is our beliefs. Okay? Where do you get certain beliefs from? How do you decide how do you dress for church? How do you decide whether you're going to wear makeup or no makeup? How do you decide whether or not you add coconut milk to your rice or not? Okay? You do it because mommy's been doing it, or Grammy's been doing it. And then the third thing, your behaviors. We behave a lot like our parents. The older I get, people say to me, they say, boy, you're James Adley's son. Okay? They say everything you do. And sometimes I'm offended. I say, I don't see it. But other people see it. And so we take on similar characteristics. Okay? Next slide. So family dynamics play a significant role in our mental well-being. Our mental well-being has a lot to do with the environment that we grow up in. Next slide. Okay, and then you could go to the next one. So, that's fine. Go to the next one. Okay, so what are we talking about when we talk about a nurturing environment? Because, see, we're going to discuss a couple of things today. We're going to discuss what is a protective factor, what does families good, and we're going to talk about some things that we don't do well. So, for a nurturing environment, and when we talk about nurturing, we're talking about encouraging, cherishing. Okay? I spend a lot of time on Facebook, and recently there's been a lot of people posting stuff about you can have a fantastic home, you can have a 10-bedroom home, okay? But your children may not be happy. In fact, there's some children who are happier in a 1-bedroom, okay? That's telling us a story. So what we're looking for is encouraging, cherishing environments that children grow up in. We need environments where there's emotional warmth. That means there's affection and love. So let's go back 40 years. As we brought families in for family therapy, we had young men who were sitting there and crying and saying, "Daddy, the only thing I wanted in life was for you to say you love me." That was so powerful. My son, he's the youngest child, he's 24 now. And every time he hangs up the phone, he says, "Daddy, I love you." And if you don't say it, he says, "I'm waiting for it." You can't say, okay? And so, but see, I didn't grow up in that environment because my dad didn't grow up in that environment. So he very seldom talked about it. But the fact is that children need love. And what's missing in our society today is that there are a lot of young men who are in search of love from father figures, but the fathers aren't there. Okay, but we'll talk about that later. Okay, acceptance. Children must feel that they're accepted. They have to feel a sense of security and belonging, promoting resilience. So let's spend some time talking about resilience. Resilience is the ability to bounce back. Okay? So when we talk about life troubles, we talk about the ability to somersault. In fact, resilience comes from an old Greek word that means to tumble and land on your feet. So like our little gymnast who took off all those years and went back. I keep thinking Dominique Dawes, but that's from another generation. Okay? It's Simone Biles, yes. I'm giving away my age now because I'm thinking Mary Lou Retton and stuff like that, you know? Yeah, no. Okay, so Simone Biles. But the fact is that you land on your feet. Okay? And that's what we got to teach children. We have to teach children that you're going to go through some rough times in life. But it's important to land on your feet. And what amazed me was that we sat in this meeting, and the group in Freeport said, "Oh, we're glad that we got hit by the hurricane." And I'm like, come on now. I didn't come all the way here to hear this foolishness. They said, "No, we're glad." They said, "We took a licking for the Bahamas." They said, because see, Nasuvians couldn't handle this. If Dorian had hit Grand Bahama, hit Nassau, the whole country would have shut down. Because see, we haven't gone through stuff like that. But they went back, they talked about the history of hurricanes. They talked about Francis and Jean, okay? And then they say, see, we've always bounced back. You see, that's what we got to teach children. So this resilience is important. We also have to teach children healthy boundaries. Okay? Healthy boundaries. Now, after COVID, I don't know how many of you are familiar with this quiet quitting that a lot of folks in the workplace are going through now, okay? And quiet quitting is this attitude now where I'm not going to let anyone stress me out. Pastor Cunningham could ask me to do whatever I want to do. I already make up my mind that I'm coming out Sunday morning, and that's it, okay? And there are people who do that in church, at work. I'm going to work. Because what happened was that after the devastation of COVID, people decided that, look here, it's all about happiness. And you remember there were people who were leaving jobs left, right, and center. And it was in pursuit of happiness. Because after an experience like that, okay, people, their first choice was that I'm going to be happy. So, a part of our job as parents is to teach children how to be happy despite what's happening. And then the promotion of self esteem to give children a sense of value. Okay? Now, any millennials in here? Okay? Because, see, millennials got this down pat. I always laugh at millennials because millennials is the first generation where whether you get an A or you get a D, you still celebrate it. Yes, everyone. I go to graduation sometimes with millennials, and you have a millennial, and they say, you have the valedictorian, and then you have someone who got 1 C and 1 D. I like that. And someone at the back said, "That's my Shaquandra." And then you hear the jump, okay? So what we have actually done is that we have taught them that, look here, whatever you do, you're special. Okay? And that's why if you look around here and you look at in the last election, how many cabinet ministers are millennials? How many people run for election? Because they've been told that you're special, you could do anything. What you talking about? Wait until you're 50? You could be there. Okay? But we need to do that across the board with our children. How do we make them? How do we instill in them a sense of value? Okay? And that's important. Next slide. Now, Brother C, now I can deal with you. You remember a time, because see, most of them might be a little young. You remember a time when you saw a young lady that you were interested in, or a young lady saw a gentleman, and they took them home. What would the first thing that parents said, who are their people? Okay, why you think? And if you were from a certain island and you had a certain surname, they used to say, they crazy people, leave them alone. Okay? Huh? Look, I won't be invited back here. I ain't stepping out of line. You ain't dropping me. Okay? But remember, I used to say, check these people out. Okay? What do you think they were trying to protect you from? What are some of the things that you think they wanted to protect you from? Mm-hmm. 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 Thank goodness for salvation, because I would have still been single. Okay? So yeah. So back then, they scrutinized. Okay? They wanted to know, who's his daddy? Who's his granddaddy? Where are they from? Okay? I hear they in little incest be going on in that family. Mm-hmm. There's a whole bunch of alcoholics here. Womanizers. Okay? Some of them been in prison. Okay? And so there was always this sort of warning. Okay? Next slide. Okay. Anyone watch Bridgerton? Charlotte? Okay. You know what happened? Charlotte went, because she was about to marry King George. only to find out months after she married him that he was crazy, that he had mental issues. So she became queen, but she had a king who had mental illness. And she ended up having to rule the country because most of the time he was locked up. Next slide. See? He was crazy. Okay? And this is why people are so concerned. Get to know who it is. Not just because you're mango skin and you look good, but everything up here may not be ticking. Okay? And if it ain't ticking, okay, it means that when you have children, your children are going to be affected. Because I could only contribute 50%, but 50% got to come from her. Okay? Next slide. So, let's get into the gist of it. I can make it really simple for you tonight. 3 areas of concern when it comes to mental health and your family. Let's start with worry. It has to be a reason why so many times in the Bible we are told not to worry. Why do you think? Why do you think? Because it's just not once, twice. I think it may be almost 100 times there's some reference to not worrying. Let's talk about that. Because see, if you worry, you can pass it on to your children because they observe you. They learn to deal with life situations based on how they see you. And some people in genetics will tell you that babies in the wombs take on the trauma that mothers are experiencing. So if you're having a rough pregnancy, okay, it passes on to the children in vitro. Okay, so now let's talk about worrying. What someone tell me about the last time that they worried. Come on. You have a headache. Mhm. Okay, so let's talk about, first of all, worrying is negative. Okay? We always sit around and we think about what could possibly go wrong. Okay? Worrying is repetitive. It's like the same thing happens over and over, and you sit there, you sit there, you sit there. Okay? Worrying causes you not to be able to sleep. You go to bed 9 o'clock, you wake up 10 o'clock, you think you've slept the whole night, and you realize you still got 8 hours more to go, but you can't go to sleep. Just as tired, yes, yes. You see? Worrying is that every time a car stops in front of your house, the phone rings, okay? You automatically think something is wrong. Worrying is mental. Worrying takes away your peace, okay? And extended worrying, okay, has some negative effects on you. Now, interestingly enough, the same part of the brain that allows us to worry is the same part of the brain that allows us to be creative. So what do you think the message that God is sending us? The same message, okay, that the brain is saying, you're going to get bad results when you go to the doctor. They're going to come and they're going to take your house. Your children's not going to amount to anything. Okay? God is saying that same part of the brain is the one who's saying that, to tell you that things are going to be better. That you're going to find a way. Okay? So what it is that we have to do, and this is what we have to teach our children, that not to worry. Okay? Nothing lasts forever. There are going to be some hard times in life, but they too shall pass. But see, you have to demonstrate that. You're going to be walking around, oh, child, I don't know what's going to happen. Oh, Lord, I can't pay my bills. Oh, Lord, the people coming and they can take my house. What do you think is going to happen to your children? They're going to start to get paranoid. They're going to start to worry. Okay? So worrying is a mind thing. Now, stress is a physical thing because stress first manifests itself in you physically. The majority of you, the last time you felt stress, it was because some part of your body told you something was wrong. So now let's go around, and I want some volunteers. The last time you were stressed, which part of your body alerted you that something was wrong? Stomach. I mean, you can hang. Yeah. Stomach, gastrointestinal. Running to and from that bathroom. Yeah, something is wrong. Okay? How many? Headaches. Okay? Your legs, you feel it in your legs. What else? Chest. Shoulders. Okay? Okay? Let's get personal, man. Some of us have erectile dysfunction because the stress takes its toll. And if it happens too long, you're not talking about it. You have a wife who says to you, so what's wrong? What's wrong? You see in someone else say. And that adds more stress there. Okay? Yeah. Because now you got to explain. Okay? So, we're talking about stress. Now, the key to understanding stress is that stress is brought on by stressors. Stressors are the things that produce the stress. So the key is to be able to identify what are the stressors that we have. Now let's talk about the stressors. What are some of the sources of stress that people experience? Financial, okay? What else? Relationships. Jobs. Children. I don't, whenever persons talk about Citibank, they say that's a stressful job. Okay? That you meet, it's known to be stressful. Okay? So you got to learn how to handle that. Okay? What are the stresses? Children. And I'm not even talking about the little children. I'm talking about some of those who come and fighting with their baby mamas and then dumping all the grandchildren on you and stuff like that, so that you can't even enjoy your life because you're dealing with 40 and 50-year-old sons and daughters. Okay? So we have stressors. Again, we know that if we can reduce the number of stressors, then we lessen the stress. But you have to be bold enough to get rid of the stressors. Now, we all know, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. The problem is, we trying to change the things we have no control of. That's what makes it stressful. Some of the things that you're trying to change, you need to leave alone because you can't change them. See, I live east. I could, as much as I want to talk about, there's traffic coming from out east. So I have two options. I either leave 7 or I leave 9. Or if I leave 8, I have something to listen to in the car. The traffic ain't gonna disappear. I have no control of that. Okay? Now, there's some things that I do have control over, but they're the things that I don't want to give up. There's some people that you need to cut off. You have control over that. There's some boundaries you need to be able to set. You have control over that. You may work in a stressful area. Once you identify it's stressful, then what you need to do is start preparing yourself for something else. Because the company will not change. See, I don't care how much Mr. Saban jump up and down and cry, the company exists. And she could talk, I can talk, you know? That ain't gonna make no difference. They have some things in place. So I say to folks, when you get all stressed out, you need to move on. You have to say that this job. See, I was there, and I can give you a little side. I used to, after I got married, and I had one child, and then I realized that the job that the amount of money I was making at Sandilands, couldn't do it. And then I looked at the opportunities available, because in the government sector, when you join, and you move up based on when you came in. So when I joined Sandilands, there were two persons who had joined like 2 years ahead of me, and they were only 2 years older than me. So if I had stayed, I would have just been getting to that top position. You see? That was stressful. So I had to make a decision on how do I get out. And when you start plotting how you could end their lives, oh, I'm a good boy. I didn't say that. I didn't say, oops, yeah, I wasn't supposed to say that. You know? then you realize that you're in a desperate situation and you need to get out, okay? So I consulted my wife. I said, it's time for me to go. I got to find, I love psychology, clinical work, but I got to find something else, okay? You understand where I'm coming from, okay? One more thing. Some of these same children that we love, okay? Let me tell you, live your life. Live your life. Raise your children well. Your children don't want your leftovers unless you're J.R. Ewing out of Dallas, okay? They don't want it. They will sell it in a heartbeat, okay? So factor some of the enjoyment and fun into your life. Now, worrying is mental, stress is physical. If you don't deal with the mental and you don't deal with the physical, then what you have is anxiety, okay? Anxiety is a fear of the unknown, okay? Anxiety takes the mental anguish and the physical issues. That is why you ever heard people talk about being anxious, and they say they're having panic attacks. And when you have a panic attack, your mind is crippled and your body is crippled. That's because you've got unresolved issues, unresolved worry, unresolved stress, okay? Now, the research I was sharing with Paul, that looks in, and at this point, we're still looking at the final bit of it, but there was a sizable increase in children from grade 6 through grade 9, post-COVID, who are saying that their anxiety levels are high, depression is high, and suicidal ideations are high. Okay, but we'll talk about that in a few minutes. Next slide. Okay, so let me read this for you. Nevertheless, national and international research reported that a large part of families of the general population experienced the pandemic as a traumatic event, manifesting anxiety, depression, and paratraumatic. And what paratraumatic is, that's emotional and physiological distress experienced during and or immediately after a traumatic event. Okay? So we know that COVID really impacted families. Okay? See, many of our families survived because we weren't around the same time. We had dinner. We maybe watch a show. And we put the children to bed. We go to bed. We say, how was your day? Okay? And then the next day, we repeat it all over again. Okay? But then COVID came. And COVID forced some of us to stay home. Okay? And for some of us, that was pure misery. See, my personality, I enjoyed it too. I, I mean, I would if COVID could come back without without all that, man, I love that. Okay, I love that. But the fact is that there were families that did not do well, because if me and you are on the brink, and now I gotta wake up in the morning, and I gotta look in your face all day long. You see, because before I used to be able to get out 7 o'clock in the morning. You see? And then you start to notice every single thing. You see? Because I'm trying to teach and I'm doing a Zoom. Okay? Why are you going to heat something in the microwave? And the microwave can be. Okay? Man, let me give you this joke. On Saturday morning, I used to love being an essential worker. You see, because Saturday morning, that was my day. And look here, 7 o'clock when the food serves, I used to be ready from 6:30. And I would go, and that would be my time, because I didn't have to deal with wife or children. And I would go, and sometimes she would call, and she'd say, you get everything? And I'd say, no, I'm still looking for so-and-so. And she'll say, come home. And I say, no. I had Super Value East, but they say Super Value West got it. So you go Super Value West, you see, because that was the opportunity. Now, again, think in terms of people whose homes they were struggling. Think about children who witnessed what was going on. Think in terms of children who heard their parents snapping at each other. Okay? My little niece almost drove us crazy because the room that she was using, she completely wrote on every part of the wall instead of listening. Yeah. And see, my children are all grown. If it wasn't for the fact that my sister-in-law died and left us 2 children to raise, okay, we would have been home free. But now we've got, the 13-year-old is left, okay? But that's another stress. Because I used to, I told you before, my son is 24. So now I got to go back to a 13-year-old. Okay? And 13-year-olds today are different from 13-year-olds yesterday. Okay? Next slide. Okay, so let's look at the effects of the pandemic on teen mental health. So you see one of the first things. And girls seem to be affected more. Okay? Anxiety, depression, sleep issues, withdrawing from family. Well, that's balance. Okay? Boys and girls, they started to withdraw. Okay? And then aggressive behavior. In my clinical practice, for the first time I'm learning girls are bullying more than boys. And if you think it's just a government school issue, no, it's not. It's worse in the private schools. I asked the question the other day, do you think alcohol use is higher in public school students or private school students? The results showed private school students. Why? Because many private school students' parents have alcohol handy in their homes. Public school students, their dads get off from work, he stop by the bar, he drink a collect, he'd maybe take one home in his pocket, okay? But he don't keep it laying around the house. But our bougie private school parents, they have it, oh, I had a rough day, let me get a cocktail once, prepare dinner, you know? So they have it sitting there, and the children have access to it. Okay, next slide. Next slide. Okay, so let me jump ahead now and tell you. How do you get your children to survive? 4 skills. 4 skills. The first is goal setting. If you want healthy children mentally, start off by setting goals with them. You remember grandparents used to say stuff, if you wake up and you don't plan anything, you'll fall for anything? Yeah, you see? Think about how many children we know got in problems because they weren't doing anything and someone came along and asked them to do something with them. No. This is to prevent. We're in a preventative mode now. Okay? So goal setting. And realistic goals. Okay? Talk to them. What is it that they like doing? Not what is paying the money, because the research is showing us that 80% of people are working in fields that they're not happy. There's no passion. And so that's one of the problems. And it's because we're not helping people to look at their skill sets. I had a student just, with getting ready for a spring advisement. I had a student who came in. She's struggling to make C's in psychology. She wants to be a psychologist. So I said, why is it that why do you want, well, my mommy said I should be a psychologist. No, mommy. Don't live your life through your children. Okay, what is she good at? We look at her transcript. She's taken 10 history courses and made all A's. So why aren't you looking at careers where you could use your history? Because obviously you're happy, you love the projects, you love going on okay? So we have to help children to understand what's important, we have to be upfront and honest with them, and we have to have some direct conversations with them, okay? The second skill is decision making. You have to help children to learn how to make decisions, how to choose between right and wrong. I mean, we say common sense and common, but we have to. There's a process that you go through. You weigh the pros and the cons. Just because this doesn't look good doesn't mean that it's not gonna mature. One of my favorite nursery stories is the swan. Okay? Remember, they thought that was such an ugly bird, and then it turned, yes. Okay? And this is the sort of things that we have to, and that is why some of those old stories that we grew up on always had, and the motto of the story, or the moral, of the story is, because what it did was it forced us to look and to think. Okay, so goal setting, decision making. stress management. Okay? Children experience stress. I had a young marijuana smoker, and he was sitting there, and he was telling me about his life. And he said to me, he was 12. 12, yeah, 12. And he says to me that his parents are divorced, but his parents still share the home. So mommy has her boyfriend who comes in. Daddy has his girlfriend that comes in because mommy say she ain't moving out. She invests too much in that house. Daddy say he ain't selling that, the same thing. So they're staying in. And then he talked about what life was like. And you know what I said to myself? I said if I was him, I'd be smoking marijuana too. Okay? Children go through stress. So now we have to equip them with stress management skills. Let me tell you about substance abuse. Substance abuse is a social illness. See, no one ever wakes up and just decides that, tomorrow is Thursday, Wednesday. I think I want to start using cocaine tomorrow. It doesn't happen like that. It happens because we're with people who are doing it. Okay? And they say, Keno, try this. Okay? And depending on how stressed out I am, it seems attractive. And they say, boy, Lisa, come on, Lisa treating you like that? Boy, let me tell you, have some of this. When you go home, and she come asking you why you just come home, man, you just, and go, you see? See, that's one way of doing it. And then they apply another type of pressure. Sometimes they pass around and they say, Paul, take a sniff of this. Bro, take a sniff of this. No, we ain't doing Keno because, he got to report to Lisa, so we ain't going to do that. You see? So now, you know what you do? All of a sudden you say, boy, it's mine. What you mean I report to Lisa? Boy, give me some of this. Okay? See, that's how. So we have to teach children how to cope with stress. That people will laugh at you, that people will make fun of you, that they will ridicule you. Okay? And then communication. And that's one of the most important skills. Talk to your children. Have conversations with them. I remember when my oldest daughter was in K3 at Temple Christian. I picked her up from school, and she jumped in the car all excited. And she said to me, and we were driving, and she said, Daddy. I said, yes. She said, the little boy sitting next to me in class asked me what color panties I was wearing. So I say, so what did you do? She said, oh, I showed them to him. I didn't know whether I was going to run into the 17th shop or not, right? But you know what happened? The Holy Spirit said to me, Richard, if Kai feels as comfortable at 3 telling you that some young man has proposed to her, what is it that you need to do so that when she's 17, she feels equally comfortable? You see? And then I realized children are going to move away from parents during adolescence. See, they're going to withdraw. They're going to go into their rooms. They're going to stay on those phones. So now you as a parent have to make it a point to go and approach them. Okay? You inquire. You ask about what's happening, what happened in school. When I pick them up from school, I listen to conversations. I know. They know, they said they know the difference between us. When they want action, they set it up so she goes to school. You see? When they want diplomacy, no, I heard them. They say stuff like, well, see, we don't want Daddy to come because Daddy's going to walk up there and say, hello, Mrs. Savusas. I'm Richard Adley. I'm Caden's father. You see? They say, no, they want Mommy. They want to hear the screeching tires, and they want to say, who been bothering with my child? You see? So have those conversations. even to the point now there are young ladies, and d- don't take this offensive, but the young ladies, I'll leave work, and one of them will call me and say, Daddy, can you stop to the store and get some pads? Okay? But that didn't happen overnight. That happened because of years and years of years. And we have to stop this thing about I'm the parent. Okay? Sometimes you have to walk to those children. Sometimes you have to engage them. Sometimes when those friends come over, you have to sit and you have to listen. Okay? Okay. Now we can move fast. Next slide. So, the impact of communication. Communication is the lifeblood of any relationship. Any couples in here? Nowhere. Okay? If you ain't talking, okay? Look here. Communication could be rough. When we were dating, I used to hate, we've got to talk. And it's like, oh, geez. What we got to talk about, okay? But you learn. It's a part of life, okay? Next one. And you can keep hitting them quickly, okay? Healthy and effective communication patterns within families contribute to positive mental well-being, okay? Families that talk will be able to address and prevent a lot of mental health issues, okay? The ability to express emotions, needs, and concerns fosters understanding and connection. Children need to be able to express. They have emotions. Now, how they express them is important. That's where the boundaries and the discipline. But get your children talking. Let me tell you something. When you've got children and they say, don't leave me by Uncle Mike, there's a reason. And many of us say, what you mean? Like, he's the only one. I got to go to work. I'm talking to you. You ain't got to spoil my thing. I got something to do, okay? Listen to what children are saying to you and ask them why. Why are you uncomfortable? Why is it that you don't like going there? 15 years later, you find out that the child used to be molested. And they were expressing some emotions to you. Okay? Next slide. Poor communication. Criticism, conflict, or lack of emotional expression can have detrimental effects on mental health. Let me pause there. Many of us, as we were growing up, experienced some hurt and some pain. And we don't deal with that. And we take it out on children. Say, I can't stand you, you're just like you're good for nothing, pa. Every time I see you, you remind me of him. What does that do to a young person, a young boy? You ain't gonna be no good. Okay? So now we're speaking some things into their lives. Okay? Constantly criticizing them. You ain't gonna never amount to anything. Well, if I keep telling you ain't gonna amount to anything, you won't amount to anything. I might as well live it, if that's what you've been telling me. Next slide. Okay? So poor communication leads to isolation. Okay? I don't want to be around you, so I keep to myself. Next one. Resentment. Okay? I hate being around you because of how you make me feel. Next slide. Misunderstandings. Next slide. Exacerbating health issues. Okay? When children cannot express emotions, a lot of times it comes out in physical symptoms. I do a clinic at Family Medicine, and a lot of times people come in for physical ailments, and then they're referred to psychology because there's nothing physically wrong with them, but they're experiencing it, and it has to do with psychology and mental health. Some children get sick just to get the attention. Okay? Next slide. Family conflict is inevitable. Okay? There are no perfect marriages. Anyone in here never had a disagreement with their spouse? Okay, so conflict is inevitable. But what children need to see is that mommy and daddy raw, but they also make up. And they ain't going no place. Okay? Next. How it is managed and resolved greatly impacts mental well-being. Next one. Okay? Ongoing or unresolved family conflict has profound psychological and emotional effects on individuals. Okay? So toxic family environments will create stress, anxiety, depression in children. Think about it. When I was a little boy, my parents were my world. They were my world. I did not like to see my parents angry. Okay? So I had a case last week. A young boy demonstrated some violence in school, 7-year-old. Okay? So they asked me to come in and assess the situation. His parents are not together. You know what the young boy says? He says, I don't like it when daddy beats mommy. 7-year-old. So now, because he's seeing mommy being beaten by daddy, okay, he feels that he could pick something up and hit his female teacher at 7. Next slide. Next one. Okay, all of these. So marital conflicts, sibling rivalries. Okay? Some of us live in toxic homes with we don't get along with our siblings. That's an issue. That tells you something. If you do not get along with your brothers and sisters in your home, that says something. Okay? Next slide. And parent-child conflicts. And I mentioned that before earlier. A lot of times the parent-child conflicts has to do with some unresolved issues with spouses and previous lovers. And this is why even in some homes you have some children who are treated a certain way because your daddies bring money and he pays for you for this. But your daddy don't give me nothing. No. Now, what must it feel like to be abandoned? So let's go back to substance abuse. Pastor, remember, there used to be a time as well when you used to give away children. Because you may have had 5, and your sister in Acklands didn't have any. So you take one of your children and you say, well, look here, let me send her down to Sarah. And Sarah raised that child. That's all. That child may have had the best. Sarah may have given that child everything that she had. Okay? But we get into substance abuse counseling. And one of the issues that comes up is this feeling of abandonment. And the question is, how did mommy and daddy decide on which child to give away? You have 5 children, but you decide to give me away. Why was that? And all their lives that bothered them, even to the point where some of them had to use drugs in order to cope with it. I am nothing. I'm inferior. Because see, what they're saying is that mommy went through a process of elimination. I can keep this one, I can keep that one, and keep this one. Oh, must be because I ugly. Maybe because I dark. Maybe because I as bright. Maybe because my daddy hurt her. So she chose to give me away. Okay? begin to understand what children are going through. Okay. Next slide. That's our stress bucket. Okay. Now let me quickly tell you about stress bucket. Imagine you're like a stress, like a bucket. Stress comes in all day. The thing is that to keep stress at a certain level, if you could balance the stressors in your life, then you're okay. If your stress gets to the point where it flows over, okay, then you become dysfunctional. So this is why when people are experiencing so much stress, they begin to experience emotional distress. So we have to learn to balance stress. And we've got to teach our children how to deal with it. Okay, next slide, almost there. So family stresses. Chronic stress within the family can have significant psychological and emotional effects. Okay, next one. Financial difficulties. As much as you can, don't break down in front of your children when you're going through financial crisis. Do it in your room, okay? But children become afraid. They become anxious, okay? That's one of the reasons, that's one of the things that we're looking at now. During COVID, when persons were losing their jobs, a lot of the anxiety was because children just didn't know what was going to happen to them. The hotels laying off, okay? The hospitals are laying off. The banks are laying off. You're worried. And that's trickling over. And sometimes you have to go into the room at night, you and your wife, and talk it over. Because sometimes to talk it publicly, the children are listening and they're panicking. Okay? What else? Divorce. Big. The reality of it is that some children have to go through it. Rough. Next slide. Caregiving responsibilities. Okay? Illnesses. The challenges. Any of you who are ill, battling some disease, okay, that's stressful. I started working in 1982. In 1983, my mother got a call and said that her cancer had reappeared. That was one of the most difficult things for me because I was working at Sandilands and I'm here trying to counsel people, but I also have to deal with the fact that my mother was diagnosed with terminal illness. Okay? A year later, she died. Okay? So children struggle with it. Grief. The fear. What is it like to live after losing a parent? That's a real fear. And that is, again, is why the anxiety level has gone up. Because there were so many children who were afraid, what will happen to me? Next. Adultery. I did a group with some young men at UB, and they said, you know what's embarrassing? You go to school, and someone comes up to you and says, your daddy is my daddy. Okay? Or someone says, you got a brother, so, okay? And then you now have to deal with this reality. So, see, as adults, we have to be careful how we live our lives because our children are impacted. Everything that I do, I try to think in terms that I got a wife and I got children. Okay? So, what happens if I do this? I imagine the faces of my children. Okay? Your behavior today will impact them. Paul mentioned that I've spent some time, 18 years, doing ancestry. And look here, I've gone back to the early 1800s. And, you know, I realized if I didn't know that I was a sinner and I was from a line of sinners, I found that out. Because sometimes we think we're the hardest thing. Okay? But some of the scandals that my families have gone through over the years, okay? We have to understand where we came from in order to have an appreciation. But we have to break some generational curses. You see? And we have to decide that it stops with us. Next slide. Domestic violence, okay? Next slide. Okay? Parenting styles, practices, and attitudes can have a profound impact on emotional well-being of children. How do you discipline your children? How do you deal with your children? Okay? See, when we're talking about positive parenting, we're talking about, go on, warmth. Okay? Show some warmth to your children, man. Hug them. Kiss them. When I told my son he's going to UB, man, he used to get mad sometimes. I used to say, boy, look here, you and Daddy going to be bonding. We could ride to UB together. I said, look, I said, and when you get out of class, you come to my office, we can eat lunch. And he was like, Daddy, stop it, you know. But the thing is that, see, but guess what? They like that. They might be a little embarrassed, but they like that. And then they compare you with some other parents. And they say, boy, I'm glad I have you as a parent because guess what? This one don't even know the last time he saw his daddy. Okay? So warmth. Next slide. Next one point. Responsiveness. Respond to your children. Show them that you're there for them. Okay? Show them. My dad never used to go his generation, he was what you call the old timers. The fact was he never left his job to come see me do something in school. But guess what? I'm the reverse. If they were praying in assembly, I was going to be there. Okay? Because I realized how important. And you know when that happened? When my son was swimming for the first time, he was 3. And he got on the board. And I shouted out, Caden, go, Caden. And when I saw the expression on his face, what that meant to him, for his daddy to shout and say, go, boy, I realized that I could not miss any more events as long as I had it in my control. Children want you to be present, to support them. Okay, next one. Consistent discipline. Discipline them. You know, every now and then we get in there, and I have to remind him, I'm your daddy, I ain't your friend. Me and you we could talk about anything, but at the end of the day, I can let you know. Okay? And I'm not one of those psychologists that believe in timeout because timeout don't work. See, Bahamian children and American children, totally different. Timeout don't work. For some people need that old B blow that Grandma used to say, come here, if I give you one B blow, okay? And you have to know. But then you follow it up with love. Okay? And you don't do it all the time. But you have to discipline. You have to let children know what's right and what's wrong. Next slide. Okay? See, negative parenting styles can increase the risk of mental health issues. Okay? What are they? Neglectful. Parents who just don't have no time. Never wrong. Never doing anything. Authoritarian. I am in charge. Why do you think there's a high level of, let me tell you about teen pregnancy. Ever notice that any mother who's a teen mother will more than likely have at least one daughter who's also a teen mother? Check the records. You know why? Because they spend so much time telling them not to do it, as opposed to having conversations with them and explaining to them how it happened to them and why you shouldn't do it. You see? Because, see, children go through a rebellious stage. And the fact is that the minute you say to them, don't do something, I remember I had my uncle used to tell his daughters, say, I don't want a Rastafarian, and I don't want a foreign something. Well, guess what? Do you know that they were the two that his daughters saw? It was like they automatically became attractive to them. Okay? The minute he said Rastafarian, it was like that oldest one, she just gravitated towards Rastafarians. Okay? And so we have to be careful with that. Okay? Next slide. Next one. Next one. Okay? Overly permissive. Okay? Overly permissive. So this sleeping out, and oh, the McCartneys is having another sleepover, but every week you and sleepover, okay? And mine, it works for me because that means I could do whatever I want to do. The fact is that you don't know what those children are getting into, okay? Before I got married, I met a young lady in counseling. She got pregnant at 12 because of a sleepover. She went to a sleepover with other 12-year-olds. But what her mother did not know was that the 12-year-old also had an 18-year-old brother. Now think about her mental health issues. To be 12 and to be pregnant. Okay. Let's go. Authoritarian.
She needs to understand why, or explanation. She's not like me. Couldn't ask parents that. Why? Because I said so. That's not an answer for her though. So I find that with her, I need to be more in an authoritarian kind of parenting style.
Okay, let's put it this way. You have to be more communicative with her. You have to be more involved with her. You have to be prepared for more arguments with her, but you don't want to be a dictator. And authoritarian translates as dictatorship. Like where, like, I tell you what to do, you only do this, you ask me to do, okay? And that's not good. But the fact is that you're on the right track because every child is different and you have to be different with every child, okay? And so my oldest daughter fooled us because she was such an ideal child, okay? To this day, she works in Canada, and every morning she calls, every night on our way here she called, and Opal had to say to her, "Nah, this is going to be about 2 hours, so call," okay? Well, number 2 came along. Number 2 is totally different, okay? See, that one, sometimes she's in college, and Opal will say, "Have you heard from her for a couple of days?" No. And Opal was calling New Jersey to her friends and saying, "If you see my daughter, please tell her to call home." Okay? The one who's close, the other one decided that she wanted to do graduate school in France. So she's gone to France. She's been there 3 years. Last month, she sends us a message saying that, oh, she's going to Egypt. I told her, well, I said, I'm glad she went to Egypt in August, because if she had gone this, I would have been afraid. You see? So that so we have to deal with them differently. And then she said to me, I thought I had my parenting skills down pat. You know what she said to me? She said, And I didn't even sleep the whole night. She said, Daddy, she said, do you know why I'm in France? I said, why? She said, because I know you want me to do a particular profession, and I intentionally didn't do that because I know that's what you and mommy wanted me to do.
Wow. Wow.
But we always knew that's what she was good at. So now she calls us and she says, but I'm going to do it. But she needed 3 years away from us.
To figure it
And
out.
she was the one I gave the most freedom. Because she was always, you know, and she answered back. We gave this guy a ride one time, and her and her brother were in the car, and he almost had a stroke. He said, never again. He said, I'll take that oldest one, but these two? You know? So you basically what you got to do is you're doing it right. Different styles, you see? Now, you're not letting her dominate you. And she needs to understand who's in charge, you see? But authoritative parents, they take the stance, it's my way or no way.
Some things are my way or no way. Like you can't
But
sleep over.
that's
you're
fine.
not sleeping
But
out.
that's fine, you see? But not everything,
No, not everything.
you see? You
Okay.
see? See, when you think in terms of authoritative, think in terms of dictators,
Okay.
okay? Yeah, but you're on the right track, okay? Okay, so I touched on this earlier, and we're almost there. I can let you go right now. Always remember, there's a genetic component, and I touched on it again. So when you talking to your children and equally yoked and stuff like, you know, and a lot of times we limit it, oh, well, she's a Christian and I'm a Christian, so that means everything is fine, okay? There are some genetic issues that you got to watch out for. And if you see the signs of them, tell your children to walk away. Run. Yes. Okay? You don't know how many women tell me, I said, but when did he start hitting you? Well, from we were dating, but I thought it, okay? A history of violence. He saw his father beat his mother. Okay? There's some other things. I'm a caregiver, but I run away from anxiety and depression. If I start dating you and you tell me that you have history of depression, I can be honest with you. I don't know if I want to take that on. I'm sorry. And so I tell to people, if there's mental illness there, are you, see part of the counseling, the premarital counseling involved, are you prepared for this? Because if 3 times a year she has to be hospitalized at Sunderland's, are you prepared for that? And then again, are you prepared that those genes are going to pass on to your children? So you could have, you see, it's the same concern we have when we say, do you have insurance is asked all the time, do you have a family history of cancer, of blood pressure, of heart disease, okay? And we decline you sometimes because we say you're at risk. My wife always laughed at me because I told her I was dating this girl until she told me that she jumped off a bridge. I say that was it. That was it. That was it. I don't need to go through that. That means you get mad with me. The next thing, you jumping off. And then I discipline our children and they start jumping off. No, that's how I think. No, I'm practical. And we have to be realistic. Okay? Be careful. See, early identification and also intervention and support are crucial in addressing the needs of individuals with a family history of mental health issues. Look at some of these mass shootings and stuff like that that happen. look at how many years family members were aware that something was wrong with these children. And they don't do anything about it. Not my good child. But your good child was stabbing people and has a history of violence. And you never sought mental health help for them. Okay. Yeah, and that's what we're talking, intergenerational transmission of health issues. That's the reality of it. Next, almost there. You could just go through this, okay? The effects of substance abuse, okay? Again, no, go forward. Okay? See? So if you got a substance abusing individual in your home, whether it's a parent or a child, it affects the family. Codependency. Okay? Other family members take on and behave and start to behave just like they're addicts. They may not actually drink, but the thing is that their lives become, you would think that they're addicted. Okay? Next one. Enabling behaviors. We start to enable the children to do stuff. People talk about, man, I've heard parents say stuff like, I'm going to get some grass for him because at least the grass don't do him as bad as the cocaine. Okay? Next one. And emotional distress. I have parents who have become addicts. I saw a mother the other day in the food store, and sometimes don't think of me as being mean, but sometimes I don't like, I try to duck people if I see them, because I'm busy and they're going to, yeah. So I was in the food store and I wanted to go home, and I saw this lady, and let me tell you something. I knew if I got into a conversation with her, that was going to be about half an hour. And so I saw her going towards the cheese and thing, so I got into the vegetables. But let me tell you something in life. Whenever you're trying to avoid someone, the chances of running into them increases. Okay? And so I thought I was at the cash register. The only thing that kept me in there was that I was waiting for my stamps. And the lady had to go to the next cashier because her one was empty. And I heard, Adley, that's you? And being the good Christian that I am, I turned around and I said, Sister B, how are you? You see? Because I had to go, I had to save face. I couldn't let her know that I was ducking her and we're in the same church. What would she think about? Man, I'd have to spread myself on the altar on Sunday. How are you? You know? And then she started. She said, I hadn't seen her for a while, but she was very open with me. She said, I'm so frustrated. She says, I go home at night. She says, and before I go home, I stop and I buy myself a half pint of vodka. I go into my room and I drink. Why is she drinking? Because she has 3 sons who are drug addicts. The youngest son is 40. So why is a mother allowing 3 40-year-old children to drive her to drink? Okay? See, that's one of the things that she could change. She's not obligated to keep them in the house. Okay? Okay, I think my last slide coming up. So this is what we've got to address. Family stigma. See, a lot of us in here will experience some mental health issues, okay? But guess what? We don't do anything about it because we don't want people to know that we're experiencing problems. Because we still believe that physical health is important, but mental health is a taboo, so we don't talk about stuff. You don't, if you go and tell someone, woman, I'll raggy you inside here if you embarrass me. And the church people too? What you thought? Who they could counsel? Keno and Lisa? Huh? They got their own problems. They ain't counseling me. I won't come back to that church. Okay? So there's a stigma. We also have to realize that we have a diverse group and there are different beliefs. And I will always go back and I will remember Dr. McCartney saying to me, my first year, and he gave the example. He said there's still some people who believe in voodoo, Obeah, and Christianity all at the same time. And there's some people who believe that they're fixed. And they're in church every Sunday, but they believe. And he gave the example one time of having to go in because he was treating an elderly lady, and the fact was nothing that he could do seemed to help her to recover. And he said as a last resort, he walked in, and she was sitting there, and he walked in, and any of you who remember Dr. McCartney, okay? He was as tall as Pastor Cunningham, okay? And twice the size, or taller, and twice the size, okay? And you know what Dr. McCartney said? He intentionally walked in there as if he was a voodoo doctor. And he did a chant around her for 5 minutes, okay? And when he finished, she got up and she said, "Who? Thank you, I am unfixed." Because see, in her mind, okay? And listen, no, think about it, think about it. Think about how many intelligent people you know who have said, they fix my child, they fix my brother. His behavior is because he's been fixed. Okay? So now you're beginning to understand. But I need you in closing to know that mental health is health too. Mental health affects your physical health, and your physical health affects your mental health. So you have to be intentional about taking care of yourself. You have to live a life that's godly. You have to live a life that's balanced. You have to live a life, you have to deal with issues. Stop pushing things under carpet. When children behave in certain ways, deal with the behavior. Okay? Behaviors are symptoms of underlying issues. And the same way that if your child was coughing too much, at some point you would say, I got to take you to the doctor because I don't like the sound of that cough. When you see that child behaving in a certain way, you have to address it the same way. I need to get some help for you because I don't like the behaviors that I see. Stop sweeping things under the carpet. Okay? Any questions?
Let's give Dr. Ali a round of applause, please. Wonderful, wonderful presentation. Don't go anywhere. We're going to open it up for questions. And we've been streaming live. We've been streaming live, Doc. We have a number of persons who are on our YouTube chat. And we have opened up questions for them. And there's a question that's coming in. And the question is this: where does the psychologist or psychiatrist determine that mental illness is spiritual rather than mental or medical?
It's interesting that you asked that. I mentioned David Allen.
Right.
And I remember very early in my career, he made a statement. And the statement was that there's a very thin line between schizophrenia and spirituality. Because the behaviors could almost be the same. Okay? And so this is why through psychological testing and evaluations, psychologists and psychiatrists make diagnosis as to whether or not there's a mental issue. Now let me help you to understand this. A lot of times you driving now the streets and you see people preaching, talking, having services by themselves, they're preaching. They're spiritual. But we also realize that something is wrong. Something is a little off. You get where I'm coming from? So the line is very thin. Now let's go back some more. What did people say about John the Baptist? That's a crazy man. Walking in the wilderness, eating locusts and honey, and just ranting and raving and talking about this. Just look how he kept himself. Okay? Today he would have been considered a crazy man. Okay? And so that's why the diagnosis is so important. And I remember Dr. Allen's last line was that one of the critical factors is, would you feel comfortable leaving your child in that person's care? Okay? That helps you to understand. So there's a discernment, for everyday persons, there's some special questions that you ask yourself. Because if Lisa says to you, I don't feel comfortable leaving my child in the care of this person, there's just something off, then you know it's psychological. Okay?
So that leads
Now,
to
let me just make one more point. So see, that's why that last slide was so important. Okay? Because when people come to see me, I have to understand their world. So I spend a lot of time talking about their spirituality, their culture, the environment that they grew up in, their beliefs. Okay? That's an important part of my assessment. Okay? And then there's some critical things, like their thought processes, okay? How they make decisions, how they deal with issues in their life, okay? What are some recurrent patterns? What are certain behaviors? And then a part of the psychological evaluation is that I also get the spouses and the parents to do assessments. So like with school children, I have the teacher do an assessment. I have the parents do an assessment, okay? And then I combine the results. Because sometimes parents don't see things, or they pretend that they don't see it, okay? And then that's how I make my decision. But it's a thin line, especially with schizophrenia. And notice with schizophrenics, they could preach the gospel. They know the word. Okay?
this leads, to another question that kind of came out of that. Obviously, we are in the church in the spiritual world, and there are some hormonal imbalances that some people have. Where do you draw, again, this is going to kind of come from this question, where do you draw the line between prayer and medication? Because some persons do need medication because of hormonal imbalance or other issues. Where do you draw the line to say, let's pray for this person, or now let's send this person to Dr. Adderley?
Okay. And I'm gonna say it to you. When do you draw the line between a physical issue and prayer? So someone is sick, they're in pain. Yes, we're going to pray for them. Does that mean that they don't need medical attention? Okay? And see, again, this is why this is so important. We have to treat mental health the same way we treat physical health. Okay? So, Mrs. Haven is experiencing pain. Paul may call and say, look here, please pray for Sheba, right? Sheba, because she's not doing well. And we're going to get together and we're going to pray. Okay? But Paul's also going to take her to doctor's hospital. Okay? Now let me share with you a real story that happened with me. So when I left Sandilands, I went into human resources, and I was in human resources for about 15, almost 20 years. There was a young lady on my job we started to notice there were changes. First of all, her colleagues realized that something was wrong with her, okay? Her boss picked up, he said, this girl, something is wrong. I think she has some mental issues, okay? They brought it to me, okay? But because I'm in human resources, I can't counsel. So I referred her to one of my colleagues, okay? Her supervisor was responsible for taking her to the appointment. That afternoon, I'm waiting for the report from the psychiatrist. Her supervisor comes to me and says, look here, Richard, on the way, we passed by one of the churches was having a midday prayer fest. We stopped in, okay? They prayed for her. She's doing much better. She doesn't need to go to the psychiatrist. The following week, she was dead because she locked herself in the house and set the house on fire. Okay? Now see, sometimes what we do, and that is why, because we take mental health too lightly. And that's why I say you treat it the same way you would treat a physical illness. You pray, you do, because they work hand in hand, faith and works. You see?
Thank you so much. We are open for questions. Please, questions, any other questions? This is a very timely topic, I can tell you. There are persons who are suffering in silence. Yes. And they don't know where to go.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are manic depressive. Some of them are bipolar. Some of them are dealing with so many different things.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about generational
Mm-hmm.
stuff that
Mm-hmm.
from their childhood they're dealing
Mm-hmm.
with. Any other questions? Because we as a church understand the seriousness of mental health, of course, the spiritual aspect, but we wanted to make sure that we put this information in front of our members
Mm-hmm.
so that they know that there is help.
Mm-hmm.
There's no such thing as not having help. So any questions?
Let me just say this, and this may answer some questions too. How do you help each other? Okay?
Mhm. One
First of all,
another's.
you are your brother's keeper. Okay? You are responsible for observing and reacting to anything that's out of the ordinary. So let me help you to understand something with stress and mental illness. When people become mentally ill, they typically behave the opposite to how they normally would behave. Okay? That is a clue that something is going on, and it requires you to get out of your seat and to go and assist them or attempt to assist them. Example, Paul is a very quiet person, okay? He don't mix much with people. You know, when I see him, if he has something to say, he's going to say it, but you're not going to find him constantly, okay? If Paul walks in here one Sunday and says, see, I'm sick and tired, something is wrong. Something is wrong. You know, and especially no weapon formed against me. And plead the blood against all you sinners inside. Okay? Something is wrong. And it may not be correct, but you know he's off track. So someone needs to approach him and say, what's happening? On the flip side, if you've got a very vibrant, okay, fun person, and they come in and they, and they sit at the back of the church, okay, and you say you get involved in praise and worship. That's a clue. Something's wrong. You need to reach out. You need to find out. See? We got to get past this. Say, he didn't speak to me today. I see him sitting on the. Well, I ain't speak to him either. I walk right past him. I tired of these moody people. You see? So when someone is out of sync, jump in.
So we got to look out for the one another's.
Yeah.
Speak to taking breaks, time. We are in a stressful world. Everyone is so busy. Should we, as family, as persons, take time off to just mentally unwind and just get away and stop working so much that we always on the clock and the time? That's one question.
You know anyone who's been to heaven and come back and tell us how it's been?
The Lord Jesus is on his way back. Anyway, no. That's just
I said that because the thing is that the reality is we only live once. Okay? The second thing is that you can work all you want, but if something happens to you tonight, someone will be looking at Imperial Life tomorrow, not Kalina, Kalina, to see what they want out of your office and who's going to replace you. Okay?
at least it can be up.
I was at BEC.
Alive. that's
Yeah,
right, alive.
I was at BEC one early on in my career, and there was a young lady who worked in one of the Family Islands office, and again a cancer patient. And about 2 weeks before she died, the persons in the community started calling in and saying, "We heard that so and so, she's about to die. Can we apply for her job?" Okay. Now, if that doesn't, okay. Let me tell you, see, you need to hear some facts. Miss Roll, one of my clients, who was in Jackson Memorial Hospital, massive heart attack. They had given up on her. She said, in her state, the doctors was talking to her children because they thought that she was gone. She said her oldest son said to the youngest son, "I hope you know when mom is gone, I want you all out of the house." She said, "Richard, even though I was heaven bound, that put hell up in me." Okay? Okay? She said that was what she needed to get back. She said she fought that fight. She fought that fight because she realized that in life, what we do, we make sacrifices for everyone else, okay? Especially our children. But the fact is that when we're gone, we're gone. So you have to do some things in life. So you have to enjoy life. So I tell people, take vacations, okay? Take time off, set boundaries, okay? Let me give you this joke. Check it out. Go online. You will see that certain countries, like the European countries, are far ahead. In France, the French addendum to their labor law says that if you work for a company over 50 people, that your employer cannot call you after hours or ask you to check emails or respond to anything, because they are trying to get people to realize the importance of setting boundaries, okay? And see, COVID helped it. You see? Because now COVID has taught me how much time I lost. I don't mean to say, let's be real. I ain't coming back to church on a Sunday night. And most churches have changed. Most churches don't have Sunday night churches anymore because the people ain't coming out. Okay? COVID taught us that, look here, that there's some things that you could do from home. The same way people are zoomed in. Okay? So yes, so what's going to happen is that boundary setting. Okay? live your life as if, not in a sinful way, but live your life as if there may not be tomorrow. Say the things that you have to say to folks. See, again, COVID taught us when funerals were limited to an hour, when only 30 people could come in, what I tell them now? I say to my wife, I don't feel obligated to go to funerals no more unless you're very close to me. Because if I wasn't on your 30 then, no, we have to be real with it. Weddings the same way. When you made that decision, who was going to be your top 30? Okay? So now why, if I'm tired on a Saturday, you feel I need to show up to the other child's wedding? No, I was in the top 30. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Take your life and take your life into, see, stop being led by people. Stop being, those three words, woulda, coulda, and shoulda are stress words because it makes you feel obligated to do stuff. If I don't feel like doing it, I ain't doing it. If I'm tired, I'm gonna rest. Okay?
all right, my goodness. Any more questions? Because this is so good, but the kids are already out, and oh my goodness. Obviously,
We
yeah.
have that 13-year-old home,
Yeah.
and I don't know what to expect when I get home.
we're gonna have to invite you back again. So so expect to hear from us again.
Yeah. Well,
Wasn't this wonderful?
I'm like
everyone?
Jonah,
Oh
I
my
can't run
goodness.
from Paul. He can always track me down.
Just for the matter of fact, Dr. Adley, that you don't even raise your voice. When you talk, you just talk very nice and calm. You keep everything calm. Now you can ask open later. That's a discussion we'll have to ask online when we talk insurance and stuff.
That's my karma.
So we want to thank you, Paul. I'm going to ask Paul to just wrap up and give a words of, saying that you were picking on Paul all night. Paul could, he's always quiet, so let him talk tonight. And just bring a thank you to, to Dr. Adley.
So I thank everybody for coming out tonight. Like Richard has said, we've had a long relationship, but I hope the information today was helpful for everybody here in attendance and those online as well. It's a topic that keeps repeating. There are a lot of people going through a lot of issues, and be able to give them the right advice, direction, and guidance, not only spiritually, but from a health standpoint as well, to be able to take that. So, Richard, I want to again say thank you. And thank you, Opal, as well, for being here alongside with him as well. And just want to make sure everybody heads home safely. Before we go, we'll wrap up in a word of prayer. I'll ask my wife to pray. She doesn't mind.
Heads bowed and eyes closed. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity that we had tonight to get together, God, to learn about mental health issues and how it affects us and the family. Thank you for the words of wisdom that were imparted to us, God. Let them stay with us and help us to apply it in our family lives and in our daily lives. Father, we know that this meeting and the Kids Ablaze in its entirety, God, was for your honor and for your glory, God. And all we want to do is for you to get the honor and glory out of this situations, God. We give you thanks and praise and honor, and we ask you to protect each and every person as they go home to their families tonight. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Just before you go, Richard, we just wanted to give you this gift. Say thank you so much. I know I think they want to take a picture.
This is one part of non-COVID that I like. See, when it was COVID time, I would do the presentation, but we would be on Zoom, and then everyone would say, "Okay, thank you, Brother Richard."
We appreciate you.
But see, at least I get real appreciation. So that's one reason why I don't need COVID back.
Thank you so much, everybody. I know, Kino, you have some last
There's
words.
some refreshments next door. So, oh, right at the door, we have some refreshments for you just before you leave. So thank you so much. Next week, Tuesday, we have another presentation from the media influences on our children. So come here and come to hear what we have to share with you. This coming Saturday is our consecration for our young people. So for all of you who are going to be on our prayer, we're going to be praying for them Saturday morning. So we're inviting you to join us 7 a.m. for prayer, and let's spend some time praying for our young people Saturday morning.